Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Fresh off of Thursday night football, Cowboys hold off the Giants' valiant effort to pull out a win on their home turf as the Dogs. Malik Neighbors continues to look like the best rookie receiver in the past recent years. Dak Prescott, very efficient, as is Daniel Jones, just not enough juice for the Giants. And the Dallas D answers the bell. We're going to touch on all these things. First, like and subscribe, comment down below. Let me hear what you thought about the game. I'm curious. So, let's jump on in. Dallas wins 20-15 at MetLife Stadium tonight to move on to 2-2. Giants fall to 1-3. And at the beginning of the season, this game definitely did not excite a lot of people. You know, obviously, Cowboys, big market. They're going to do well in any primetime game. But after the first week, we could all see that the Giants, they're not to be taken seriously. And then after the past couple weeks, the Cowboys, we felt fraudulent. You know, this team is built on a house of cards. But it all kind of changed last week when the Giants took it to the Browns in Cleveland. And over the past 3 weeks, Malik Neighbors has just looked like the absolute right choice for the Giants in the draft this offseason. And then obviously with the Dallas Cowboys struggling in their previous 2 games, getting boat raced by the New Orleans Saints and then getting pounded by the Ravens last week, their backs were against the wall. And they've dominated the Giants over Dak Prescott's career. I mean, he's won 12 in a row, 26 touchdowns, 6 interceptions against the Giants. And the Giants, nobody took them that seriously coming into this year. But this week, it felt like this game is within reach for this team. And not being a Cowboy hater, because I like the boys, and I like Jerry Jones. I think he's part of the problem, yes. But I do like the boys. CeeDee Lamb is a stud. How can you not like Micah Parsons? And Big Mike, as much shit as he gets, he's a fucking good coach. You know, he's won a Super Bowl. He's a perennial winner. He always has his teams, you know, with 10-plus wins in the playoffs. You know, it's hard to make the playoffs and it's even harder to get to the Super Bowl. So I think we hold him on this pedestal because, yeah, it's America's team and they have a lot of talent. But let's not act like he's the village idiot and this team is, you know, bottom tier. It's one of the better teams over the past few years. So you got to show a little bit of love to Mike McCarthy. He knows what he's doing. This game tonight was a little bit slow, but the Giants stayed in it the entire time. You know, the real thing that bit them in the ass tonight was obviously the red zone efficiency / cashing in field goals for touchdowns. I mean, they kicked 5 field goals, which means they were in scoring position 5 times, but they couldn't get at least 1 touchdown. And that obviously is going to hurt any team. But when you're a team like the Giants, where you don't have a lot of star power, your running game is mid, you have a stud in Malik Neighbors, but you don't really have any other big threats that the defense is going to roll their coverage over to, so you can kind of hamper his ability to stretch the field. And then obviously Daniel Jones is an interesting case study. Struggles his first couple years. Doesn't look like much. There was a huge debacle when he got drafted. You know, there's a video of Giants fans looking like they're more miserable than they've ever been. And it didn't look good for the first few years. Then Brian Daboll came in. And he led them to the playoffs. They upset the Vikings on the road to win their first playoff game I think since their Super Bowl run. And they gave him that massive extension in the offseason, which at the time was, pretty risque move. Because Daniel Jones that year, while he led the team to the playoffs and they got a win, which wins are quarterback stats, they're not all on the quarterback, but they obviously play the biggest role in the decision of win or loss. But I think going back to that year, we saw Daniel Jones play so efficiently that we thought that he was a world beater and put up these crazy numbers, but he didn't even break 20 touchdowns. So it's not like he was putting up Josh Allen MVP type numbers. No, he was a solid game manager who didn't turn the ball over that year. And they played sound football. The contract was such an interesting decision. And you don't know if that was more influenced by the GM or by the owner. John Mara, Giants owner, has kind of seemed like the guy that doesn't want to see the guys he's drafted leave, which I'd understand as an owner. And listen, if you've drafted these guys and they're good enough, keep them. I.e. Saquon Barkley. This team with how Daniel Jones played tonight and last week, this team might have a legit shot to be a wild card team. They have a great defense with Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau as the bookend edge rushers. And then you got Bobby Okereke as your Mike linebacker. And then you got a couple young guys in the secondary with Deonte Banks. They just drafted Drew Phillips. Cordell Flott looked really nice tonight. Had a couple good pass breakups. And a couple good plays where he didn't get the PBU, but he made a solid effort, and it was just a better throw. So they have pieces in place, which why I mentioned earlier this week that this job, if it comes open, is such an enticing job. Because there are the infrastructure is there to lead this team to a quicker turnaround. They just need the quarterback position. But if you can get play like you did out of Cordell Jones, wow, Daniel Jones, throwback there. If you can get the level of play that Daniel Jones has shown over the past 2 weeks, is it worth the money you paid him? No, but a lot of teams would take that. So it'll be interesting to see. Unfortunately, Malik Neighbors came down with a concussion in the fourth quarter. Hope he's okay. They have a longer week. They get the mini bye after Thursday Night Football. Hopefully he can make a full recovery because he easily looks like their best player. Probably him and Thibodeau. Both young studs. So there is some pieces there that you'd be excited to work with. Obviously, the quarterback position is the main question mark. So that's really all I got for the Giants. We're going to talk about the Cowboys now. And if you're a Cowboys fan, this wasn't the prettiest win. You would have liked to see your team come out and really exert dominance over an inferior team like the Giants that you have given the business to for the past decade, it seems like. But you got the win. And you got the win in a tough, hard as nails fashion, which is key to being able to have a sustained run in the NFL. Because as exciting as finesse is and explosive plays and big turnovers, what wins a majority of football games is being able to play from the first whistle all the way through the last whistle. All 60 minutes, every second of those minutes. And the Cowboys did that tonight. Had a lot of big third down stops, gave up some yards in between the 20s, but once they got down to the red zone, they really buckled down, held the Giants to field goals. And, if you're a Giants fan, wasn't the prettiest, but you'll take it because it gets you back on track, and you needed this win. You needed this win, as much as I need $1 million or a homeless man needs $1 million. Like, you needed this win big time because your schedule coming up, Steelers, Niners, you got the Texans in there, you got the Eagles. You got some tough games coming up. And it could be a struggle. So getting back to 2-2 is a big deal. And you saw Dak and CeeDee Lamb get back to it a little bit tonight. 7 for 98 and a tutty for CD. You saw Zeke touch the ball a couple times. My girlfriend's blowing me up. You saw the offensive line struggle a little bit tonight. That was, something that you're not accustomed to if you're a Cowboys fan. Usually you guys have a pretty rock-solid offensive line. Over the years, Zach Martin and Tyrone Smith really holding it down. But this year you let Tyrone walk. And you draft Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma to be that stalwart left tackle. And he has a lot of potential. But you saw he kind of got worked tonight by Thibodeau and Brian Burns, which is to be expected a little bit. These guys are very high-paid defensive ends. One just got the big contract extension this offseason in Burns, and Thibodeau was a top 5 pick. So you'd expect them to obviously have a tremendous level of talent. And this rookie tackle is only in his 4th start. So there is going to be some issues. I expect that to improve over the course of the season, though, because as we see with tackles, once they get their feet under them, they have the size, which this guy does. I mean, he's 6'6", 320, so obviously he's got the size. That's not an issue, and he went in the 1st round. So it's not like they took a project in the 3rd round to hope that he would turn into something under good coaching. Like, no, this guy, he's your 1st round pick. And you guys have shown that you hit on 1st round offensive linemen. So, was it perfect? No. But your defense answered the bell big time. Obviously, during this week, you guys got thrashed on the ground against the Ravens. The talk of the town was this team can't stop the run. And if you can't stop the run, there's no point in even suiting up, because you're going to get embarrassed on the football field. And you guys did a damn good job. I don't think I saw a run longer than 6 yards. Like, none of them are sticking out into my head. So you answered that question. Micah got banged up. Trayvon Diggs was struggling with cramping. And you guys still pulled it out against a Giants team that is obviously a little bit frisky. So you'll take the W. Mike McCarthy buys him himself another week off the hot seat. Jerry Jones gets to talk about a win, which we all know he loves to talk about himself as much as anybody else does. And you have some building blocks. I think this Mike Zimmer defense is going to start to kind of come into its own a little bit. Got to keep in mind, we're only in week 3 or week 4 now. We just started week 4. Mike Zimmer, this is his 1st year as your defensive coordinator. You guys went through some bumps and bruises in the first few weeks. But a lot of the time we hear on defense, it's a lot more of the Jimmies and Joes than it is on the offense. And you guys have some Jimmies and Joes. Obviously, I mentioned Trayvon Diggs, DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons. You got a couple young guys that you drafted on the interior of your defense. You brought in Eric Kendricks to kind of help teach the Mike Zimmer defense since he was with them for so long in Minnesota. You also got Malik Hooker, former 1st-round pick for the Colts out of Ohio State, as your free safety. So there's some pieces to like on that defense. And I think you guys will kind of round into shape through the upcoming weeks. And you're going to need to, because like I said, you're going to get tested. And it could be brutal. So savor this win, because you might not have one in a little bit. And I'm sure we'll revisit it. But for now, Giants 1-3, Cowboys 2-2. Congrats, Cowboys. Robbie, my cousin, big Giants fan. I'm sorry. I'm sure I'll feel your pain this Sunday. Patriots take on the Niners. We'll break down the rest of the NFL games, the predictions, previews, what to look out for on Saturday. I just want to touch on Alabama and Georgia before I get out of this podcast for tonight. This game, I haven't been so excited for a college game during the regular season in a long time. I kind of fell off of college football for a while. Last year, got really into it. The Madden franchise, you get to download your own draft class, and it helped me really learn these guys' names and figure out, what teams are, stacked with talent, who to look out for, what to watch for. And then throughout the playoffs, I started to get real excited because the Patriots started to struggle. The QBs obviously were the talk of the town and the biggest discussion. And I kind of fell in love with Michael Penix throughout the year. Just love how he slung the ball. And obviously going into the Final Four, you had Alabama and Michigan and Texas and Washington. Was so excited for those those two college games. And then obviously this year they released College Football 25, and I'm sure you guys can relate where you play Madden your whole life, and college football when we were younger, it helps you learn these players so easy. I mean, it's basically like reading a textbook, but of all the NFL rosters. And that was my biggest struggle because the NFL is a compact 32-team league where everything is so close. There's not this massive talent gap that there is from the SEC to the Midwest Conference. Well, now getting College Football 25, you get to learn some of these smaller schools players and then some of the lesser known players on some of these better teams. And this Alabama-Georgia game, this is shaping up to be a classic. You got Kalen DeBoer, first time ever facing off as a dog against Georgia at Tuscaloosa. Since 2007, I heard this stat today. This is crazy. Since 2007, that's the last time Alabama has been home underdogs. Since then, at home, they are 59-2. Over the past 17 years, they've only lost 2 games at home. That's an incredible run of dominance. And they've been in a lot of big games. This isn't Liberty or Kent State. This is freaking Alabama. SEC. 2 losses at home over the past 17 years. They're home underdogs by 2.5. And both these teams have had some struggles throughout the year so far. Alabama lost, or they won, but USF, they were pound for pound with them for most of that game. And Alabama obviously took it away late. But USF, man, they played them hard for 57 minutes of that game. And they played them hard last year. So that would be kind of interesting side note for next year. That coach is doing a great job down there. Because they played Miami pretty hard in the first half, but they don't have the guns. But Georgia this year hasn't given me anything that I want to jump out of my chair about. Carson Beck, touted as one of the, high-end QB prospects heading into this year's draft. Haven't seen anything out of him that I'm, begging to tell my next-door neighbor or calling my dad to blabber about. Obviously, they got some good defensive pieces with Devontae Walker and Malachi Starks. Their defense is going to be a stud. Kirby Smart, great defensive coach, great recruiter. Their defense is not the question. But this Alabama offense has such a potential to hit these big plays. They lead the NCAA in explosive plays. They already have 11 plays of over 25 yards, and they're only through 3 games. But they go against the Georgia defense that is the best at stopping explosive plays. So it's strength against strength. I do think that the Alabama offense matches up a little bit better, especially with the emergence of Ryan Williams, their true freshman, who is just, he's like a combination of Devontae Smith and Jamison Williams. He's got the speed, he's slender, great route runner. Can't believe this guy's 17 years old. Incredible. Doesn't turn 18 until January or something like that. It's insane. And he's playing with dudes that are 2021. And he's embarrassing them. So I think this is a big game for both coaches. And I'll give you the flip side. So you got Kalen DeBoer, obviously, first start again, first true test as the Alabama head coach. Obviously, Nick Saban's incredible run of dominance over the past 15 years with Alabama. I don't think we're ever going to see that again. Well, they've owned Georgia throughout his history. So now you go up against a team that you are the underdog, but if you lose, you're kind of expected to win, because if you don't win, it feels like a step back. In Alabama football, those fans, they don't want a step back. And this is big for your recruiting as well. If you come out and you win this game, these recruits say, all right, this program's for real. There's no drop-off from Nick Saban to Kalen DeBoer. This is still legit. I want to go here. And you might land a couple extra big-time recruits. That's obviously going to help the development of your team. You might get a couple transfers that you might not if Georgia wins this game. And Georgia, Kirby Smart has struggled against Nick Saban. So this is a moment where, is it a Nick Saban problem or is it an Alabama problem? So Kirby Smart's got a sneaky amount of pressure on him as well. Can't wait for this game. I hope Jalen Milroe goes bonkers. I expect that he's going to play his best game. Both these teams, well coached, they're going to be ready to go. This is going to be a dogfight. This is going to be a classic SEC. The two best teams in that conference, they always give you the best games. The SEC always has they always have a classic every year. And this could be it. So, also, before we get off, to add to the tangent, since the SEC has expanded, now Oklahoma, Texas, some of these bigger schools, now you've added them in there, your schedule not only is tougher, but you have more competition, so it's harder to get to the SEC championship game, which automatically grants you, if you win, a bye in the upcoming playoff. So winning this game, if you lose it, it's tough to get to that point. And then you got to play a full 17 weeks of football. If you got to play through all the playoff rounds, where catching that extra bye might be quite critical to players who haven't played as long of a season ever in college football history. So these guys, you wonder how much gas in the tank is going to be there at the end of the year. How much does that bye week help for those four conference winners? There's a lot on the line for this game, even though we're early in the season. This could have huge implications. And both these teams, I expect, are going to play like it. So I got to go with Alabama, even though they're the dog. I trust Kalen DeBoer. His ascension throughout his coaching career is inspiring. It's your true feel-good story. And what he did with Washington over the past 2 years, he's obviously a good coach. And Alabama, I feel like they just have more potential than this Georgia team does. So, hope we have a good game more than anything. But I hope the fucking Crimson Tide come out on top. Roll Tide, baby. I know a lot of people might hate me for saying that, but don't hate the player, hate the game. I'll talk to you guys on Saturday. Enjoy your weekend. Have a good Friday. Stay safe. Peace out.